Good evening, everyone. We're starting our October meeting, LTR meeting for the month. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Don, you want to lead us, please?
Okay. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then please remain standing. Hey, Victor, would you like to do a little invocation for us, please?
As we gather here tonight, we pray for our country, we pray for the president, we pray for everybody. As we sit here and we're in a pandemic, people believe or people don't believe. There's nothing in between, but a life is a life. And we're looking for strong leadership through this here next 30 days. Hope people think and pray and try to talk to people in order to get some, just talk to people and just try to talk to people. And just make this country great again and stop the divide that we're seeing with all the rioting in these here cities. All the police brutality that we're seeing, it's not right. None of us in this room grew up like that. There's an America that we all live and we're proud of. At this moment, it's a divide in the country. And there's no right answer. This is going to be the future. And I just pray that we all make the right choice.
Amen.
Amen.
We're going to have a short presentation tonight. Andy is here from Americans for Posterity to talk about the fair tax, and then he also have a question and answer session after he gets done speaking. So please give me your full attention. Thank you. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, as was mentioned, my name is Andrew Nelms, and I work with an outfit called Americans for Prosperity Action. And I'm very pleased to be with you here tonight. And I was asked to talk a little bit about the proposed constitutional amendment that you'll see on your ballot. Maybe some of you have already received your ballot. Maybe some of you have already voted. But we're asked to consider an amendment to the state constitution that has some extremely large ramifications. And so I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak with you here tonight about it. And the proponents of the amendment talk about upgrading our old tax code and modernizing the tax code. But as the good book reminds us, there's nothing new under the sun. And it's certainly true in this case. So the concept of graduated or proportional graduated or progressive or flat or proportional taxes is nothing new. In fact, over 170 years ago, there was a Scottish economist that said that, quote, the moment you abandon the cardinal principle of extracting from all individuals the same proportion of their income, you are at sea without rudder or compass, and there is no amount of injustice or folly you may not commit. In fact, the famed British economist John Stuart Mill referred to a graduate income tax as a mild form of robbery. And so, as we consider this question, and as we're talking to people who are considering the question, well, fundamentally, what we need to ask ourselves is, do we trust Springfield politicians? And you laugh, but that's really the heart of the matter here. This is a fundamental issue of trust, because granting the legislature greater latitude to raise taxes in exchange for a promise that it will only affect a few people is a bad deal, especially when we consider how we as taxpayers have been treated by our politicians in the past. And make no mistake about it, there's nothing fair about giving Springfield politicians more tax power. A report that was issued by Moody's Analytics at the request of the state earlier this year said, quote, the vibrant national economy is enticing more of the state's residents to seek opportunities elsewhere. The main reason for the worsening trend is a loss of domestic residents or people moving from Illinois to other parts of the United States. And in the last few years, the gap has widened as an underperforming Illinois economy has reduced the state's appeal compared with the rest of the country. Well, no kidding.
And that report was issued prior to the pandemic. More recently, the State Chamber of Commerce released a report that cautioned that, quote, rather than eliminate jobs from a relatively strong economy that might have been capable of quickly replacing them, the proposed graduated income tax will now result in job losses that will further weaken an already weak economy. And keep in mind that as a state, we lagged the nation in our recovery from the Great Recession, and will likely lag the nation once again as we recover from the pandemic and the economic fallout caused by it and the subsequent shutdown of the economy. And a tax hike during a recession is something that even Barack Obama thought was a bad idea. As a state, we've been dubbed, quote, the worst state to be a taxpayer. Illinois has been called the least tax-friendly state. We have the highest combined total tax burden, including, especially here in Will County, among the highest property taxes in the nation, and now the third highest gasoline tax. And as the Census Bureau reminds us, for the 6th consecutive year, Illinois lost more residents than any other state, and it's no wonder why. I always say that Illinois is at the top of every list we ought to be at the bottom of, or at the bottom of every list we ought to be atop. But, it shouldn't be that way. By all rights, Illinois ought to be one of the most prosperous states in the Union if it weren't for bad public policy. Just think about all the wonderful things we have going for us. We have 36 Fortune 500 companies headquartered here in Illinois, and the fall harvest has begun, and our industrious farmers feed the world. 75% of Illinois is covered by farmland. And we've got the nation's third largest city and world-class institutions of higher education, natural resources in the form of coal, oil, natural gas, all these wonderful things. And yet, despite all of that, we're the laughingstock of the nation. In fact, if Illinois were a standalone country, our economy would be among the top 20 on the globe. Our total gross state product, the value of all the goods and services produced here in Illinois, was over $800 billion last year, nearly $1 trillion. And so we know that Illinois needs to reclaim its rightful place as the economic engine of the Midwest, but granting our chronically fiscally irresponsible legislature more tax power is not the solution. Now, just to give you a little history lesson here, as long as Illinois has had an income tax, it's been flat. But who can tell me how long we've had a state income tax? Any guesses?
30 years? 40?
All right, well, almost, yeah. We've only had one for 50 years. For 150 years, Illinois had no state income tax, and we've now had one since 1969. But as long as we've had one, it's been flat. In fact, the promise of a flat state income tax is, of course, enshrined in the state constitution. Article 9, Section 3 states very simply that, quote, a tax on or measured by income shall be at a non-graduated rate, full stop. So this entire campaign, this entire conversation that we'll see $100 million spent on it by all sides is over just those few words in the state constitution. Now, of course, a word about the amendment itself. The amendment itself does not include rates. And actually what you'll see on your ballot is not the amendment itself, but an explanation of the amendment that was very helpfully written for you by the proponents. But the amendment, the language they'd like to see inserted into the Constitution does not include rates. Of course, it merely asks the good people of Illinois to bless the notion of a graduated income tax, leaving all the minor details of things like rates and brackets at the discretion of Springfield politicians, who with a simple majority vote could change them at any time. Now, it would also make taxing retirement income easier by removing that constitutional requirement that there only be one such tax on income, and would instead allow the legislature to set the, quote, rate or rates on, quote, any tax it sees fit to implement. And so they could have one set of rates that apply to regular income and an entirely separate rate or rates that apply to retirement income. And so it absolutely makes it easier for politicians to begin taxing retirement income. And interestingly, every state with a graduated income tax taxes retirement income. Now, it's also important to remember who is asking for more tax power. And we need look no further than what the legislature did this spring, when they passed an unbalanced budget that didn't include any cuts and that pinned its hopes on a bailout from the federal government. In fact, the governor himself said that the legislature did not cut as much as he thought they probably could. And so the budget that they passed included a $5 billion line item for taking out a loan from the federal government, and we've already tapped 1.2 billion of that. It needs to be repaid within 3 years, and we have absolutely no idea how we're going to do that. Now, of course, if you've been following current events, some of these headlines may sound familiar to you. FBI agents conduct raid at Illinois Capitol. A state lawmaker has been wearing a wire for FBI. Illinois state representative charged with offering bribe to fellow lawmaker. Former Illinois state senator pleads guilty to federal bribery. We all know about the unpleasantness surrounding Commonwealth Edison and their admission to having engaged in a years-long bribery scheme and agreeing to pay an unprecedented $200 million fine in an agreement with the U.S. Attorney that identified Speaker Madigan as public official A. And most recently, a now former state senator pled guilty to tax evasion in federal court. And in fact, in August, when he was first charged with felony income tax fraud, the very first thing he did was resign from the Legislative Ethics Commission. You know, it reminds me of the Teddy Roosevelt quote that when they call the roll in the Senate, the senators do not know whether to answer present or not guilty. And it just seems to me like now is an awfully bad time for Springfield politicians to be asking us to trust them. And for heaven's sake, after Rod's recent homecoming, we were without a former federal governor in federal prison for the first time in over a dozen years. Now, I asked earlier, how have we been treated in the past as taxpayers? Recall that in 2011, when the legislature temporarily increased your income tax, that vote occurred in the middle of the night on the last day of a lame duck session. In fact, 20% of the votes for that tax hike came from lawmakers who had either been defeated or who were retiring and who were no longer accountable to the voters. We then had the rug pulled out from under us in 2017, when instead of allowing that temporary income tax to continue to drop, our politicians instead permanently increased the income tax, and that vote occurred over the Independence Day weekend, as you and other Illinoisans were enjoying backyard barbecues and fireworks. And as I mentioned earlier, keep in mind that it only takes a simple majority vote to raise taxes at any time. In fact, constitutional amendments were filed in both chambers of the General Assembly to require a 2/3 supermajority to raise taxes, but you can imagine where those proposals went. Now, just to give you an idea of state income taxes by the numbers, 9 states have no state income tax. An additional 9 states have a flat tax, meaning that more than a third of all the states have either a flat tax or none at all. And in fact, recently the trend across the nation has been a shift away from progressive taxation. In 2011, Utah switched to a flat tax. In 2014, North Carolina followed suit. And most recently, our neighbor Kentucky did likewise in 2018. And of course, a few years ago, we forfeited the title of 5th most populous state to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so what about those 5 states that are larger than us? Well, 2 have no state income tax, and Pennsylvania has a flat tax. And twice in the last 5 years, Colorado voters have rejected ballot initiatives to implement one there. In fact, the last state to implement a graduate income tax was Connecticut in the 1990s. And in 2016, the Democrat governor of Connecticut said, quote, "I've raised taxes multiple times. It's not working, and it's come up a cropper." Now, if you're like me and you don't know what the term cropper means, I had to look it up. It's a colloquial phrase meaning a massive failure. Now, I'm sure that you've heard once or twice by now this phrase that 97% of people would pay the same or less under the progressive income tax. Now, that is true when you look at the rates that the legislature passed last year. But of course, again, A, they can be changed at any time with a simple majority vote, and B, it's only true that somebody would pay less when compared to the current 4.95%. But notice that absolutely nobody would be paying less than we were all paying just a few years ago before the last income tax hike, meaning that politicians had to raise their taxes in order to pretend to lower them. And so we're currently paying a flat 4.95%, but under the rates that the governor passed, that the legislature passed and the governor signed, your very first dollar would be taxed at 4.75%, a mere 1/5 of a percent less than you pay now.
In fact, according to the information released by the governor's office, a family of 4 with a household income of $61,000 would see precisely $41 less in state income tax. And so, keep in mind that Speaker Pelosi once famously referred to $1,000 as crumbs. This notion of accepting a couple of dozen bucks in exchange for handing politicians a blank check with the likelihood of higher taxes in the near future certainly sounds like a bad deal to me. And why is it that I'm so convinced that this is a bad deal for the middle class and that this is absolutely going to affect the middle class? Well, because that's where the money's at. During the Depression, somebody once asked the bank robber Willie Sutton why he robs banks, and he famously replied, because that's where the money's at. Here in Illinois, over 80% of us earn less than $100,000 a year. There's twice as much money, there's twice as much income reported by Illinoisans who earn less than $250,000 a year than there is reported by Illinoisans who earn more than $250,000 a year, which of course is that threshold at which the governor's plan would see rates increase. We can also look at what those supporting the amendment have said and done in the past. During the debate on the $3.5 billion tax hike, one lawmaker stated outright that he did not think that these initial introductory rates were high enough. And some politicians and organizations backing the tax hike have advocated for raising taxes on those who earn far less than $250,000, which seems to me to suggest that there's an appetite for higher rates and higher taxes. In fact, Paul Vallis, who was Governor Quinn's lieutenant governor, ran for governor, and was the head of the Chicago, he was the Chicago budget director, the head of the Chicago budget office, recently acknowledged this when he said that the amendment won't solve the state's financial crisis and that it makes it easier to raise taxes in the future. Now, who is opposed to this? Well, the Illinois Farm Bureau is opposed to it. The State Chamber of Commerce is opposed to it. NFIB, the voice of small business, is opposed to it. The former president of the Better Government Association recently wrote that politicians should first, quote, attack bureaucratic bloat and embrace serious ethics reform. Just last week, the Civic Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago publicly opposed the amendment. And in doing so, they said, quote, based on the state's decades-long history of fiscal mismanagement, the graduated income tax, if passed, all but promises that Illinois will not address its long-term financial challenges. The result will be further loss of jobs and people, long-term cuts in critical services, a shrinking tax base burdened with growing debt, and a guarantee that Illinois will continue to have the worst credit rating of any state. And in urging a no vote, the Crane's editorial board said that, quote, voting in favor of the progressive tax requires a leap of faith, a belief that Illinois politicians can be trusted to shepherd these new resources responsibly. Sadly, Illinois polls have done nothing to earn that trust. And as the editorial board of the Belleville News Democrat down in the Metro East area said when this was being debated by the legislature, why in the world would state lawmakers be talking about a progressive tax if it were not a path to more of your money? So, simply put, again, we do not believe that Springfield politicians deserve more tax power. I'm sure many, hopefully all of you agree with that. But I'd love to answer any questions that you may have or that have been posed to you by people that you've been out and about talking with, because we've got a couple of weeks left here. A couple of million ballots have already started flying through the mail, and this is a very consequential question that we're being asked to weigh in on. And so my hope is that I've given you a little bit of information that you can share with others. But again, I'd be very happy to answer any questions and very interested to hear what your thoughts are on it.
You got a handout? I got a friend that's willing to go door to door and get 15 to 20 pieces of literature for him.
Okay. Yeah. If there's not some already around here, I'm sure we can do that.
Some over here.
Oh, there you go. Yes, sir.
Did you say that they currently now, with the Constitution, they can raise taxes?
They can, yeah, but it has to be flat. So if you raise it on everybody. And under current law, they could tax retirement income now. They'd have to vote to do so, but it would have to be at that same flat rate because the Constitution requires that there, A, only be one tax on income, and that be at a non-graduated rate. Yeah, so of course, we've had two massive income tax hikes in the last decade, in 2011 and 2017. And because of those twin massive income tax hikes, you and I and all other Illinoisans forfeited an additional $54 billion above and beyond what we would have paid under the old 3% rate because of those two massive tax hikes.
What's the tax rate, the flat tax rate now?
4.95%
When was the last time it was raised?
in 2017. In 2017.
Under, who's, governor was,
That was over Governor Rauner's veto.
there was one prior to that too, right?
Yes, in 2011,
That was,
Governor Quinn. Yes. Yeah, so, just a few years ago, at the beginning of the last decade, we were paying 3% in state income tax. Then it went to 5, then it dropped to 3.75 because that was part of the law when they passed it in 2011 because, again, they told us it was temporary. But it was supposed to continue to drop and fall to 3.25% in 2025. But instead of allowing it to continue to drop, they instead pulled the rug out from under us, broke the promise they had made to us, and hiked it permanently to 4.95%. And under the initial introductory rates that the legislature passed, if this amendment's adopted, your very first dollar would be taxed at a mere 1/5 of a percent less than we're currently paying.
Then history repeats itself, and then they raise it again 1% later, short term.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but that's the concern, yeah.
Sure. Why would they change?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I read, I heard recently that Illinois is going to extend the hospitalization and things to all immigrants. Is that true? And that's going to come on their backs too. Is that going to be taxed by Illinois taxpayers? They'll have to pay for that too, right?
I don't know anything about that.
That was even the illegal immigrants would be covered under the new rule. I read about it or heard about it a couple of days ago on the radio.
I don't know, maybe there's somebody else here who might know something
They
about it.
proposed that, I don't know if it passed or not.
Oh, okay.
So they were looking at, but under the Hippocratic Oath, anybody goes to the hospital,
Yeah.
every doctor has to treat them. Now, whether or not that the medical bill liability falls to the taxpayers or the hospital is what the question is.
Oh.
So they're trying to push that to the taxpayers versus the hospital.
But if you keep the borders open and you let them in, you're responsible for them.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Hippocratic Oath. The first part of the Hippocratic Oath is, if you do nothing else, first do no harm. And I always think that that should be the first rule of lawmaking as well.
Yeah, make sure.
Now, why are they pushing this through if they can raise the taxes now? What is the big change with this thing that they're asking for?
Because right now, it has to be flat and everybody pays the same. They want to have the ability to increase rates on small groups of people. And so under the rates that they passed, Illinois would have the second highest corporate income tax rate in the nation and one of the highest top marginal rates for personal income. And of course, I'm sure we have some small business owners in the room, and most small businesses in Illinois are structured as S-corps and LLCs. In fact, only 25% of businesses in Illinois are true C-corps that pay the corporate income tax rate. So if you're a small business owner, you're paying taxes on your business income via your personal tax return. It's called a pass-through entity. And these rates would give Illinois one of the highest top marginal rates on those pass-through entities, aka small businesses. And so roughly 100,000 small businesses would see their taxes increase under this proposal. And again, they say that 97% of people would pay the same or less, but again, that's only true under the rates they passed, and there's no guarantee that those will remain in effect for any amount of time. And that's only true when compared to the current rate, and absolutely nobody would be paying less than we were all paying just a few years ago.
So they could change these rates, is that another thing?
Absolutely, at any time with a simple majority vote. Yep, in the middle of the night, like they did in 2011, a bunch of lame ducks could raise it in the middle of the night.
But they still have that ability now, too.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's only on everybody. You gotta understand their logic. They can pick a small group group of people to raise their taxes, like $250,000 to $500,000 income households. Or that's a smaller number of people. So they're going to face less backlash than if they raise the taxes on everybody.
And then next year they change and they do the next group.
You know what I'm saying?
One other thing too, Pritzker announced that he will change the income tax. He'll raise it 20% if he doesn't get this thing passed. Can he really do that?
Well, they have to vote on it.
20% though? I mean, it's
Yeah.
That's more
I mean,
extortion.
the appetite for higher taxes, one way or the other, is there.
Yeah. Where's the ship that leaves in Illinois?
Well, and I mean, that's the thing, there was an NPR poll last year that said that, 27% of people who said they were considering leaving the state listed taxes as the primary reason. One of the top destinations for people leaving Illinois is Indiana. And despite the fact that proponents of the tax hike often say that businesses and individuals don't make decisions based on taxes, and if anybody does leave, it's because of the weather. Well, the weather in Indiana ain't much different than the weather here. Any other questions? No, I very much thank you for the time and for having the floor here, and I'll stick around. But thank you very much.
I did that for you.
Oh, the guy on the seat?
Dark jacket.
I want to give you
It's Tom McCullagh.
a gift here.
Thank you very much. Fresh air.
Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Sorts. What sorts? Which one? I don't know. I don't know if there's 20 there or not, but there's a couple.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
So moved.
All right, Jerry and, yeah, he beat you. Sorry.
We put them in the drawer.
All right. Okay, we're going to introduce some guests. I'm going to start with Nick, okay?
He's running for it.
Nick, as you know, is running for what position?
County executive.
All right. All right, we're off to a good head start. So you must be doing some campaigning, because they know what position you're running.
That's good.
Hi guys, most of you know me. Anybody here doesn't know me?
I don't know yet.
Okay, my name's Nick Ficarillo. I've been working government, both municipal and in county government for over 40 years as a police officer at the Sheriff's Department, retired there for 32 years, and worked at a variety of other security and police jobs, and ultimately was chief of police down in Braidwood. Left there in April of last year, running for Will County exec now. And a good track record as the chief of police. I accomplished quite a bit in Braidwood. Braidwood had the highest overdose death rate in the state. Per capita, I brought down to the lowest. We also had a program that any addict that came knocking on our door, even if we didn't have a warrant for their arrest, if we had a warrant for their arrest, then they were out of luck. But if we didn't have a warrant for their arrest, we thought outside the box and we addressed the problem and got them help. The reason I'm bringing this up is I'm a think outside the box thinker. I know it sounds strange, I'm a think outside the box thinker. But my background's been in law enforcement. I've always believed that you have to think outside the box if you're going to solve any problems. So I want to take my leadership ability and utilize that at the county exec's office. The county exec's office has been occupied by a Democrat for the last 16 years, 12 years. There's been one other Republican that's been in the county exec's office, Joe Biden. Before that, there was Charlie Edelman. County exec's office is there's only two, and I believe either Lakeland and Henry are considering a county exec's position also. As the county executive, I would have veto power. I would also have tie-breaking power in a tied vote. By veto power, I would have vetoed this 4-cent gasoline tax that we just had enacted on us within the last year. Larry Walsh previously said, let's tax to the max. Our residents have been taxed enough. Our property taxes, according to a 2019 study I saw, that we're the 34th highest property tax as far as amount paid in the entire country, out of over 3,000 whatever counties. We don't get that kind of service. I'm also against North Point. I think we've had enough trucks on the road. I want to see controlled economic growth, and I want to see Will County bring back some manufacturing jobs. We have a foreign trade zone. All of Will counties are in a foreign trade zone, also as a free trade zone. And we're not taking advantage of it. All we're doing is bringing warehousing, and eventually within 10 years, 15 years, all those jobs are probably going to be robotic. And okay, you got to hire somebody to fix the robots, but they're all probably going to be robotic. Will County is a crossroads of America as far as highways, but, and I bring this up, I brought this up once to my opponent, that there should have been impact studies done prior to any of the warehousing developments coming in. Well, there was. Well, nobody listened to the impact studies because when it takes you 2 hours to get from Plainfield to Braidwood or anywhere else in this county, it's ridiculous. The citizens are suffering. And what do we get out of it? Do we get anything? Do we get a deal from Amazon because they got 5 warehouses here? Hey, I live in Will County, give me a deal. Do you have 5 warehouses here? No, we don't. So, besides, put that aside, there's been a movement also by the current county board under Democratic controlled leadership to defund the Sheriff's Department. Okay? Sheriff's Department is, and I worked at the Sheriff's Department for 32 years. Sheriff's Department is kind of like the Marine Corps of law enforcement. They handle the jails, they handle the unincorporated area, they handle civil process, they do everything that falls in or around law enforcement. Plus they have jurisdiction anywhere in the county. There's only one person that can arrest the sheriff on the Sheriff's Department, and that's the coroner. Nobody else can arrest the sheriff, so it's a pretty powerful position. We've had sheriffs in the past that have actually taken over cases from other municipalities that have dropped the ball in certain homicide cases, etc. Even one time they took over a case from the Illinois State Police, they threatened to arrest the sheriff, but that didn't hold up. So, I will veto any move by the current county board or any county board to defund the Will County Sheriff's Department. I will also be an advocate for any police department within Will County if their municipality decides to try to defund them. I will advocate for them. We don't need conflict resolutionists. We don't need, as in Seattle hired a pimp to assist the chief of police in making decisions. What we do need is probably some revisions in training. The police officers that we have now are not trained the same way I was. I'll be honest, I was trained with a taser, I was trained with capstone. Never used either one in my entire career. Not that I ran away from trouble, I've had to have my nose worked on, I've had a broken neck, I've been shot, taken hostage, I've had a broken elbow, I've had surgery on this elbow, a broken finger, numerous concussions, numerous black eyes, numerous broken noses, but I was trained to go hands-on when somebody resisted. Now, the first thing I do is take out their taser and try to shoot somebody with a taser. Or capstone. People that have capstone, that have used capstone around me, when I was trying to make them right shoes, this stuff ends up in my face. So anyway, we have to change our way of how we're trained police. So we also have to come up with a better way of making these selections as far as our officers, because there was just a case in Texas where a police officer in Texas shot a man that was a pro-police person and was trying to break up a fight, and the police officer ends up shooting. I don't know the full ramifications, but just what I'm hearing.
He tasered him first and shot him.
What?
He tasered him first and shot him.
Taser him first and shot him. That's the same as George Floyd. I've never kneeled on anybody's neck for 8 minutes. You don't do that. You know, if the guy's handcuffed and he's not cooperating, you put him in the back of the car, you strap him down, you put a partner in the back of the car to keep him quiet. You don't needle on somebody's not pretty minutes. I don't care how much fentanyl and heroin is on. That's besides the point. My purpose as the Will County executive is we need some new leadership. And Will County needs somebody that's not going to be a yes man just to the Democratic Party in Springfield and in Cook County, because that's all we've become. Cook County has their eye on Will County. Cook County's had their eye on Will County ever since 1975 when they first proposed the airport out in Pearson. They want to control the airport. I don't know how the hell they were going to try to annex it. They said they were going to try to annex the telephone poles, but how many municipalities would they have had to go through to get to annex the airport in Will County? Springfield, Chicago, I found out just a couple months ago, had a plan. They want Will County. They want us to pay for their taxes and their school teachers and all of their deficits because they've been run by Democrats. They want us to become part of their taxing group. That was the first step in trying to get the airport passed back in 1975. And the airport's still not dead. They still own property in eastern Will County. I believe we should look at some manufacturing jobs. I also believe that there is an opportunity in the eastern part of Will County to develop some agricultural products. In 1941, Henry Ford developed, I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, especially coming from a cop. Henry Ford developed a hemp car. Now hemp is, years ago people used to say, you smoke rope, you smoke rope. No, you don't smoke rope. Hemp has such a low THC level. Hemp is actually can be stronger than steel with the right resins. Henry Ford developed this hemp car. He hired two guys to take sledgehammers to it. And when the sledgehammer hit the hemp car, it bounced back. He also had the same guys hit the steel car. The steel car was all dented up. The hemp car also ran on hemp oil, vegetable oil, etc., an extract of all that, and it was a combustible fuel. In 1941, the car and the process was all bought out by the steel companies and the oil companies. But my point is, we have fertile ground out east. We could use that for processing plants, for development of maybe some agricultural-based products, maybe not, but we're also, like I said, we're in a foreign trade zone, which means that Toyota could come and put a plant in Will County. As long as they sell their cars in the United States, they're not taxed, but we'll get the benefit of having all employees working there. And whatever happened to Caterpillar, whatever happened to US Steel, whatever happened to GAF, we don't have those anymore. We're all warehousing now. And not that it's okay for a job, somebody starting out or somebody getting into warehousing and maybe to move up to management. But when you look around Will County, well, there are 5 Amazons now in Will County, 5 Amazons. We don't get a break. We don't get a tax break. We don't get anything from it. What we do is we get congestion. And we get people coming from outside of Will County. So anyway, I've been walking neighborhoods. I've been walking precincts. I got some volunteers that also have been walking neighborhoods and precincts. I'll appreciate any help. As a Republican, I'm also passing out other people's literature. I'm not door knocking. I'm hanging door hangers. Sometimes if the people are out, I'll stop and talk to them. Try to stop and talk to some people, but the problem was some people are still afraid of COVID, especially since the president got it. And, I'm clear, but I just got tested a week ago. I'm okay. So, but people don't know that. I'm always like, I am clear, but people don't know that. So anyway, that's my story. That's who I am. And we need to win this year. We need to win this year, and we need to win the next couple of years if we're going to take back this state and stop all this goofy tax and spend ideology. Whatever. I need a pizza.
Hey, Nick and Tom, Marion did come up with a list of volunteers, live in Lockport Township, they actually volunteered in LaSalle County. So I'll get you a list of those volunteers and we'll.
Thank you so much. Mary Ann, you're the best. Thank you.
And Tom, why don't you go ahead and give your presentation?
There's one coming.
So I'm Tom McCullagh. I'm running for Illinois State Senate District 49. If you live in this area, you probably are going to be voting for me. I want to say thank you to Andrew for coming out tonight. So I had him come out to a rally that we had to reschedule last weekend, and Andrew drove all the way down to come out and talk for us. We had like 7 people come out. It was during the Bears game. There was a 10,000 person rally up north, and our original event was scheduled on Saturday, and they canceled my permit. And then they were like, oh no, you can only go on Sunday. I'm like, all right, so we've lost everybody this, and now you've got Charlie Kirk at another event. And then we met him down in Xenia, Illinois, down by Darren Bailey, 4 hours south later. So we drove from here back down there. He is going across the state trying to fight the progressive tax and the unfair income tax and everything else that we're seeing with this. If you've got to spend over $2 billion to try to profit $3 billion in taxes, something isn't right. And I want to say thank you for being here tonight and thank you for everything you've been doing. So again, I'm running for Illinois State Senate District 49. I'm running against a liberal progressive extremist. After she got her newspaper endorsements, now she's starting to show her liberal color. She said that she wants to tax retirement counts. She is for late-term abortions up to the minute of birth. She's got a Madigan staffer working for her right now. She's got over $1 million from Madigan-backed sources. And we're still fighting her hard every single day. I'm working hard to make sure that our police officers are not defunded. Oh, you found one, thank you. So I've gotten 28 mailers against me so far. And they look like this. I got a wonderful stack in my kitchen. My wife goes to the mailbox every day, and I tell her just leave them on the counter. You know, she's like, you've never said this. How could you think that? But they're citing articles from 2009, and this one it was a 2014 article that they cited, which I wasn't even in politics in 2014. So I appreciate all your support, Mary Ann. Thank you for having a list of volunteers for us, and we're going to be working hard to go forward. I just want to say the best thing that we need right now, what we need the most here in Will County, Lockport, and everywhere in this area are election judges. If you haven't signed up to be an election judge, we need people who can go to the county clerk's office and feed the ballots into the scanners and make sure that our system is accountable. So if you have the opportunity and the availability to sit there for 1 or 2 days or a couple weekends coming up, please talk with George Pearson or talk with Pete and make sure we have everything taken care of so where we can hold our system accountable and we can make sure that our votes are actually counted. Now we'll open up to any questions that we have on anything Andrew's talked about, anything Nick's talked about. This is the easiest crowd ever. Okay, we got one.
How's the memes working out for you? I love the memes.
So I don't have the mailer money she has. So we've been doing a lot of digital impact media, and we've gotten over 1 million impressions over the last month. So she's going straight negative against me because we're going so good with her, against her online in our digital media with like YouTube, Google, Facebook, and digital ad sources. So while I don't have $1 million coming from Madigan's side, I've raised almost $70,000 myself with friends and $5 and $10 donations because, thank you, because I don't want the money coming from corrupt people into my pocket. I turn down big donations because I don't want people to own me. And I'm happy to not be that establishment guy, and I'm happy to go hard for us, because at the end of the day, it's for my kids as much as it's for you guys and everybody else. Any other questions?
Who are you running against?
So it was Bertino Tarrant. She vacated, and she's running against Nick, which, thank you. So I'm running against somebody named McCullagh.
I'm the better looking one.
So you can tell us apart, he's got hair. He has no hair, and I do have hair.
McCullagh?
Yeah. So, yeah. So McCullagh is who I'm running against. She's a liberal progressive.
She's a liar.
She is. She wants to defund the police. She's openly came out saying she wants to defund the police officers, called them racist. And back in June, when somebody told me that masks were polling better than police officers, I said, that's terrible, let's change that. So I did the rally in the middle of June during the riots, and I did one of the 150 cars came out in Plainfield for that. And we did the one in Chicago, and we had Antifa across the street from us. They were throwing stuff at us, but we were there to support our law enforcement officers.
Just an idea.
And we worked hard. And now the police are polling at 90%, and masks are a little less, but I mean, it's, you know, it's a public health measure, and we have to follow that. But it's, the police are doing a lot better. And thank you everybody who's come out to do those things. Yes, sir.
Is there a back to blue rally
a big one at Orland Park this week will be great.
I don't know, in all honesty. I know we're planning an event at Gusto's supporting canines for veterans, which we train service animals for vets with PTSD, and we also train animals for first responders. So we're doing that on the 18th of October. So all proceeds go to Canines for Veterans, and then that provides service animals for veterans with PTSD as well as first responders. Anything else? Thank you so much, guys. We'll keep fighting for you.
Talk anything about the county?
About the county,
Yes.
judges. Oh, for the Central Committee? Yeah, our big push is about changing out the judges. Tom Kilbright is a straight up no on retention this round. He is the man that was behind determining whether or not if we had fair maps. He is the man that gave the final decision on whether or not if we were actually going to have term limits. So all the mailers that are going out about him being fair and independent is a bunch of bull. He's actually received over $1.5 million from the Democratic Committee, aka Mike Madigan. He is Madigan's shield. Do not believe one fact that he's some angel that was sent down here to, rule fairly over the Supreme Court. That clown lost by 300, won by 300 votes last time, and we got an opportunity. If Will County turns out of the 27 counties, let me say that again, out of the 27 counties that are in the 3rd district of the Supreme Court under his rule, Will County is the largest. If we turn out our people and make sure he gets a no vote, he's out of there. This is why this is important. If he wins again, and some of our circuit judges, which we have, there are 9 up for retention on our circuit. 5 of them are Republicans that we are supporting. I'll send these names out to Pete so he can send them out to everyone.
Don't hide those names, right.
Dan Rippey.
Well, you'll set it up.
I'm going to send it out. I'm going to send them out. Dan Rippey, Dave Carlson, Susan O'Leary, Amy Tomzak, and Richard Schonstadt, the chief judge himself. Yeah, so those are the 5 that we have to definitely retain. And again, I'll have that information sent out.
I have the list. I'll send it out to all the committee people.
And all the rest are no's.
All the rest are no's. They're liberals. Again, I'm getting pushback about one guy on there, Dan Kennedy. He's a Democrat, and everybody wants to say he's fair. He's just charismatic. He's not fair. He doesn't follow the law. We need judges that's actually going to look at the Constitution and the law.
Charismatic is good, though.
Barack Obama was charismatic.
He's got a wonderful commercial. Have you seen his commercial?
Yes,
right?
I've seen
What a great commercial.
He was very clean and charismatic.
Man, you gotta know how to do it.
That's what Biden said. So we can go with clean and charismatic, or we can go with somebody that's actually going to follow the law to make sure that we actually get in a fair shake in this thing.
And part of that is if Kilbright is kept on, he's the one that nominates the people that aren't kept on.
Correct.
So he puts in position that.
Kilbright is not retained, how is his vacancy filled?
Great question. So if Kilbright is retained and some of our circuit court judges lose, Kilbright appoints those circuit judges. If Kilbright is not retained, a special election is done, and we've got a couple of Republican candidates that would love to be able to slide in there. And again, Will County has the lion's share of those votes, and Will County can actually place a judge on the Illinois Supreme Court.
Yes.
If Will County does its job. Yes, sir.
So retain all the Republicans, vote no on the Democrats,
Yes.
and get him out of office so that there's an election and we can get even more slots.
Correct.
But I
Thank
need
you very much.
names. I don't, it
No,
doesn't
he's
say
not
it
gonna
on
pass an
there.
email out.
Okay,
You'll
but it
pass-
doesn't say Republican or Democrat.
I understand, but we know.
You'll pass the name.
Doesn't say that in the Supreme Court either, but you know who is.
Does everybody have their ballot form with them right now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Barb, you got anything you want to know about that?
Yeah. Just real briefly, because I know there's 2 other members from the township here.
Hey.
Attention, thank you. Just to talk about what Pete was mentioning before about the early voting locations. Just so some of you do not know, Lockport Township, our building on Ficarillo Road, is one of the early voting locations. Starting on October 19th, Monday, through Friday the 23rd, we're going to be open for early voting from 8:30 to 5. Saturday, October 24th, from 9 until 2. Sunday, October 25th, from 9 until noon. And then again the following week from Monday, October 26th through the 30th, it's again 8:30 to 5:30. And then Saturday, October 31st, and Sunday, November 1st, from 9 until 2. So if you do not know where our building is, it's 1463 Ficarillo Road. And that's all I have to report. Greg and Jim are here, so
Yeah.
if they want to add something to it.
Greg, you want to add anything?
I don't know if anybody's been informed about the rebate that we've kind of, Marv and I have been looking at the finances. We've seen, there's a lot of extra money in the township. We have about $5 million in the bank that we just roll over year to year and it keeps building. So this year Barb and I have brought up the idea of giving a rebate to taxpayers. So basically it's going to be about 60% of the township fund is going to go back to the taxpayers and 40% of the seniors fund. So what we've been trying to do is keep the overspending to a minimum. Ron wants to make this, Ron Alberico, the supervisor, wants to make this the Taj Mahal of all townships. We don't, I mean, our building it's unbelievable compared to other townships when we go to meet other townships. They want to add on to that with another bus barn and another storage facility, and it just goes on and on from there. So we've been trying to fight that and trying to fight the overstaffing at the township. We got rid of the water department finally, which that got turned over to Joliet, and the water department was in Fairmont. So that got turned over to Joliet Township, or Joliet City, and they're taking over the water there. They're doing seems like they're doing a good job, putting some upgrades in. I drive through that area all the time, and they are, looks like they're taking care of it. They're gonna do some upgrades to the system for the people in Fairmont area. But what happened is they had somebody on staff that was basically took care of the water department. I asked the supervisor, well, she's going to be not needed anymore. He says, I'll find something for her to do. This position pays about $60,000 a year with $30,000 in benefits and retirement. He's like, well, what am I going to do, just fire her? Well, if you don't have a need for somebody, I'm sorry, the taxpayers don't need to pay for this. So we need to get 3 votes on there. Coming up in the next elections, we need to get 3 votes on that township so we can start reining in the spending. And your township taxes don't seem like they're a lot, but we've got to somehow control the spending. That's about all I got to say about that.
And I just want to add to what Greg had said. The entire time that both Greg and I had served on there, the township has not done one single thing to cut taxes. Not one. They never do anything as far as trying to cut their spending. It's always looking for things to spend their money on, like either get an additional bus or build another building, hire people. Like Greg's perfect point was the individual that we have that was working in the water department, that position should have been eliminated. Again, we need another vote on there to start getting government under control.
Barbara and I have not voted for any of the levies or the budgets since we've been in office. There's no reason to vote for it. It's
90,000 is a lot of money.
well, they tried it, and they only work 27 hours a week.
What a deal that is, 90,000.
27 hours a week.
Not bad.
Did you have anything going on with the highway department?
Just continued road maintenance, keeping the crews out there working. I did want to mention I'm working with the Oberweis campaign as I did in the primary. Oberweis is in the Troy, Bolingbrook, Plainfield, and Wheatland area. But we got some signs here if anybody knows anybody, and I'll be doing some stuff over the weekend.
Did Tom leave on
Yeah, Tom had leave.
it? All right. Somebody needs to be signed up. Well,
Yeah, I'll reach out.
all right, I think, we still got a 30-day deadline, right?
Well, today's the last day that you can sign up for, you can register to vote outside of the clerk's office. You have to go down to the clerk's office now. October 6th was the deadline.
And what's the latest, are they still allowing the same day?
They probably are, but you have to do it
At the clerk's
at the
office?
clerk's office or on election day, I believe. But you
Okay.
just
So they
can't
can
do
sign
it
up
with people
to-
like myself.
Vote at the clerk's office and then probably just vote.
Yes. I don't know how they do that, but I remember one time we moved and it was less than 30 days and Barbara and I went down there and said, nope, can't register, so we couldn't vote that time. So I didn't have a choice. But now, when you go down there, you look at the long line of people registering to vote, I know they're voting Democrats. So,
I heard there was 107,000, I think, early votes cast so far.
107,000?
In Will County? I thought I heard, yeah. That sounds kind of high, but what? 107,000 people?
In Will County?
Oh, vote by mail.
There's only 3 of them. Maybe it was 10,700. Yeah.
Vote early and vote often.
10,000.
The early voting?
Yeah.
Early vote.
Yes.
Did you hear that?
It's over 100,000 ballots are being returned. So they're doing 5 central counts.
Yeah.
Bye.
Saturday.
This Saturday, Sunday, but the following Sunday, all the way through November 1st. There are over 100,000 ballots coming back.
So the
They said-
request, there were 100,000.
No, those are
Mailing it.
127,000 requests.
Wow.
This early voting, there was 113,000 Democrats that voted in the primary. There were 31,000 Republicans. I'm not shocked that there's 100,000 plus ballots coming back in because there was 113,000 faithful Democrats that showed up.
So that number was good, I just said, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
The problem is whether or not we are going to have our people show up at either on election day, early voting, or vote by mail. Served in the United States Navy, I've done the vote by mail. We've been doing vote by mail here in Illinois for the longest already. The problem that I had with it was the applications going out to everybody. That was the problem in this system. We've been working under the system for the last 7, 8 years now. The vote by mail is not new to us. If we do our job and have people working as poll watchers and election judges, the Democrats can't win a damn thing. Our people just won't show up. When we only have 31,000 to the 113,000, that's where we get our asses handed to us every single time. If we want to win, we have to show up. That's the first part of the game. Point blank, plain and simple. Showing up. Here's another. During the primary, having poll watchers and election judges, we stopped over 500 bad ballots from being counted. That was just a dry run, and that was just with a handful of folks. Just think if we have people at all 304 precincts, what we could stop. We don't have to worry about losing to them. We won't have to worry about taxes not rising again. We can actually prepare for our off elections, our consolidated races, and get our people in if we show up. Everybody has to pitch in this round. Everybody. Otherwise, sell your homes. Get the hell out of Dodge.
That's right.
Okay, I guess, yeah, Brian.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second? Second, okay.
All those in favor?